I ask Geert Lovink to speak to us about the fact that the meaning of... Thank you, Maxwell. The meaning of one of the terms that came across my lips all too often in the last couple of hours, open, is quite obfuscated. Let's listen to Geert Lovink.
Thank you, Andreas. Okay, that's a good start.
Now you can.
Yes, can it be repaired, or are we beyond repair?
I think it can.
This is the question, of course. For the 20th century, a lot of the kind of classic totalitarian and modernist ideology said that the system is beyond repair. It's quite interesting to see that we are looking here for alternatives within the repair rhetoric, let's say. Okay. My name is Geert Lovink. I'm a media theorist and internet critic, and I'm the leader, the initiator of the Institute of Network Cultures in Amsterdam, where we set up kind of distributed, networked research initiatives in which we involve artists, activists, researchers, and neighborhood communities to kind of create sustainable but distributed, networked initiatives. So we initiate them, but what we're very much focused on is to try to build longer-term initiatives, which in this environment, in the internet environment, I think is difficult enough, because the pace of change is still rather high. The one here on display is an initiative from 2007, Video Vortex, that deals with online video. Another one which we initiated together with the Center for Internet and Society in Bangalore is this project called Critical Point of View, which launched in January in Bangalore, which is a global initiative to bring together, let's say, critical Wikipedia scholars. And this one is the Society of the Query, which is looking at search, and is kind of also done in close collaboration and dialogue with the initiative called Deep Search here in Vienna, which is an initiative to look at the cultural impact of the search paradigm, but then, let's say, in an attempt to go beyond let's say, the Google critique, a critique which, is still in development, is still I think in an early stage. We heard something this morning also about the kind of, the ridiculous aspect where a Google critique, in this case, the German kind of culture of complaint about Google Street View is completely becoming absurdist. So in my view, it is quite important to develop this critique closely tied to, let's say, the development of alternatives. And I think because we are in this very fluid, ever-changing environment, it is very important to stress that, let's say, the harsh European culture of negative critique, of which I'm always associated with. I'm not a cultural pessimist myself, but yes, I'm a dedicated practitioner of negative criticism. Is kind of paired and strengthened with very, very strong, viable, alternatives to corporate and neoliberal ideologies and systems, like the case of Google. And we are only at the start of investigating also, how deeply our own cultures and values, of initiatives like from the 90s or like Ars Electronica for that matter, or others, initiatives that I myself also have been very much part of, are kind of infected by these ideologies. So the things that I'm saying here should not only just be seen as kind of corporate bashing, because that's way too simple. For me, this is also very much an inroad into a reflection of the culture that I am part of and that I represent myself. And this is why I'm taking this initiative from Barcelona maybe as a starting point. They took it quite heavily, and they were very upset that I criticized them. But I think we have to just start somewhere with the debate. I'm quite critical of the term free culture, and I would again call to either use it very, very cautiously or to drop the term altogether. The term is very problematic. Why? Because it kind of it's really going in the wrong direction, in my view, in the transformation, or let's say the migration, the adaptation of free software and open source principles into the realm of culture and the arts and creative production, let's say. What is the problem here is that whereas geeks are never short of cash, are always in demand, always have paid jobs, and can really even do those jobs in the rising sector of free software and open source. Although they're of course also still tied for paid work to work within the constraints of proprietary software. This is absolutely not the case for artists and cultural producers. We all know that over the last 10, 15 years, throughout the world, and not just in the West, but this is really a global, things have become more difficult, economically speaking, for those who work in the arts in a very broad sense. The terms for that is precarity, precarious workers, and so on. There's a lot of emphasis on this, and this is in particular the case for young people. And I am quite skeptical that the free culture movement keeps on narrowing down the problems that we face here only to the problem of repression, of sharing, and P2P. Even though I think the old copyright regime, the old regime of intellectual property rights, is completely bankrupt. What I would call collectively is to put much more emphasis on alternative revenue models. This is absolutely necessary, not just because kind of the speculative money ran out. We could say, well, that the speculative money already ran out in 2000 or 2001 with the crash of the .com. But increasingly so, Web 2.0 has not really so far emphasized on economic empowerment of the participants. And I know the initiative in Barcelona is also open for it. They are also struggling with it, and I see it more as a strategic debate, and not as some kind of sectarian kind of discussion. There are already a lot of initiatives underway, and I'm very happy with that, who are emphasizing on this. Kickstarter has already been mentioned, and I think it's one. Funny enough, Kickstarter came a little bit after Kiva.org, which is a micropayment system which works in the developing world and comes out of the, let's say, the ICT for development context, and this has now been transported, transformed into a cultural initiative in which people donate money to a project through crowdfunding, and the diaspora is a very inspiring and already successful example of how this could work. Flatter is another one, more recent, only been launched about a month ago, out of the Pirate Party, Peter Lunde and Linus Olsson from Sweden. You donate a certain amount of money, a minimum is €2, and then that money is, after a month, is distributed amongst the projects where you visited the sites and then clicked on the Flatter button. It's quite a simple system that could work quite well in the, let's say, social networking ecology. I'm not sure if it could work outside of that, but it's already quite successful. There's a competitor, if you may use that term, Kachingle, which really works amongst the same principles. My favorite site receive monthly payments based on how often I visit them. That's this quite simple system, and there's a slight variation of that, and that's a site called thankthis.com, which distributes the money in a slightly different way, but the principle is the same. And I really hope that we will see many more of these projects, and that we really start to give the social media a firm, let's say, economic grounding. We really need that economy to kick off, and we cannot only rely there on venture capital or government money, for that matter. We somehow need a real flow of money to start flowing. And of course this has been tried for quite a long time. The idea of micropayments and so on is already 20 years old, and it would be very, very interesting if somebody would write the history of all these attempts. I came across it for the first time in '92. That at the time it was very much related to cryptography and big banks, and of course the big banks are still playing quite a big role in it, namely that they will try quite effectively to undermine these things from happening. So sooner or later, when these initiatives grow, they will see, they will be confronted by the big banks. This is based, I think, on this kind of anxiety felt by many people, particularly in Facebook, that this social networking site is going in the wrong direction. So this is where it manifests itself. This is a site called Facebook Protest. Some of the sites that I show here are still operating within Facebook, let's say, like this one, reclaimprivacy.org, in which you kind of are being made aware of your own privacy settings within Facebook. This is Unfuck Facebook. It's kind of a funny thing where if you install it, it takes away large chunks of what you get to see on Facebook. Maybe if you're familiar with Facebook, you can see that the right column has disappeared. And this site, which I also used, Give Me My Data, in fact, helps you to bring back all the stuff that you imported into Facebook. As some of you might know, I have joined the Quit Facebook Day on May 31st, together with 50,000 other people. And in fact, I used this site, and I was quite happy with the result. This is another way, maybe a more drastic way, a more theatrical way to do it if you want to quit Facebook. This is a Rotterdam initiative developed by Modder, Your Unfriendly Neighborhood Media Lab, as they call themselves. Yeah, unfortunately, they have only one server, so they can only serve clients one by one. So it's very busy on that machine, I can tell you. It just erases all your traces in a number of social networking sites like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And this is a somewhat similar initiative, by the way, also from Rotterdam. So I don't know if they like these morbid initiatives over there. It's called Seppaku, and it basically does the same. It erases, or at least attempts to erase, all your traces on Facebook. But of course, much more powerful than, let's say, these public suggestions and gestures to the outside world are the initiatives that are being underway right now to develop alternatives for Facebook and maybe also Twitter. Although Twitter has had problems in the past, it has not really been attacked that fiercely as of yet. At least not in certain circles, let's say. Here I would say there is an interesting hybrid project that maybe we can learn something from. I'm active in Ning.com. Ning claims to have 300,000 social networks. I'm saying it's a hybrid project because it's still centralized on a server. It's still run under certain Californian ideology venture capital models. So in that sense, it's a classic US firm in that sense. But still, I think it would be very interesting for those who develop those initiatives to look at maybe the experiences that people make inside Ning. Because Ning, I think, foreshadows something to come. And maybe we can also learn from the constraints there, or what people do not like about Ning sites. Well, GNU Social is one of the initiatives. It comes out of the Free Software Foundation, and what they all have in common is, as Maxwell already said, that you can install them on your own server and have much more autonomy. This is another one, quite a small one. It's called Appleseed. You can see the guy. You can see it's early days with these projects. I would say the same of Diaspora. We'll have to see how it's going to work out when the software, when the code is published in October, and people will start to fool around with it. It will certainly take a few months, if not years, to really fully develop. But I'm very confident that we're about to see that Facebook is reaching kind of a limit, and that underneath, quite invisible at the moment, it will start to fragment, and then in a kind of a snowball. Once the technology is further developed, it will just fall apart. Another one that I want to mention here is Crabgrass, developed by the Rise Up people, also with a kind of Debian background. It's also, let's say, a very good hardcore activist free software libre initiatives. I would like to close here with our contribution that we would like to make to this field. In Amsterdam on November 12th and 13th, we're gathering to speak about the alternatives that are underway. It's an event that we organized together with the Bali and with the National Film, Audio and Video Archive in Hilversum in the Netherlands. And here we will not only look at the kind of the critique of free and open, but we will also have sessions on the new alternative revenue models, and also look, by the way, at the alternatives, what we can do with the broadcasting system. Because like here in Austria, you know, the public broadcasting is getting a lot of money, and it is really time that new media starts to organize itself and claims a substantial part of the national budget of public broadcasting. This is, as people are moving to the web, this is really that we need some radical change, you know, in the media policies. Well, if in your country there is something like a national broadcasting, of course. So again, to summarize, the radical critique should be paired with alternatives, and if we bring the two together, a lot is going to happen in terms of empowering users and communities. Thank you very much.